We are even I can trade. You will be assimilated. Your trading knowledge and distinctiveness will be added to our own. You will click the like button. You will subscribe to this channel. You will share this content with at least one other friend. Resistance is futile. Your assimilation to the collective will begin by joining the Even I Can Trade Discord. Link in the description of this video. You will join a tier based on your distinctiveness, or you will join the general area with no economic impact. Excuses are irrelevant.
What's going on, y'all? It's Even I Can Trade. We are back here for another video, and today is Martin Luther King Day. And I wanted to talk about a couple of thoughts that I had regarding MLK Day. I came across this particular article in CNN, and this has been of interest to me for a while about how the top 1% and the top 0.01 and all that kind of stuff percent, and just general wealth inequality, how the top 1% continues to capture more and more of the produced wealth of the world compared to everybody else. And, it's led to some thoughts to me about, if you project this out into the future, what does that look like? What does that mean for the world? What does that mean for everybody? And, you project that out far enough and you eventually get to one person having everything and everybody else having nothing, right? Mathematically speaking. And I don't think it'll ever get to that point, but you do get to a breaking point before that somewhere. Like something's got to happen prior to that. And a lot of these thoughts kind of informed me making Even I Can Trade in the first place. Like, how do we, what can we do as like somebody who has no wealth? What can a normal person do that just works a regular job, doing whatever? How is it even possible to cross over the different economic fences to build wealth in the first place, where people above us are kind of sucking up all of the wealth like a vacuum cleaner, and that kind of led to what I do and why I'm doing what I'm doing with Even I Can Trade. So I wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit, because this is going to continue. And there is absolutely no incentive for this to stop, because it requires, at its base level, you have to ask people to make less money and grow at a slower rate for the benefit of people who they don't know. And, if somebody like me who thinks, once you cross over a certain level of wealth, like once you have a couple of $1 million, and I'm talking about like 50 million, 60 million, 100 million, what does the next million really matter when you can buy anything that you want and have any experience almost that you want? I'll even say up to 1 billion. Like once you have 1 billion, what does the next billion really matter, right? Like I know people personally who make, a couple of $1 million a year, and they are happy, like they are in no danger of any kind of unhappiness whatsoever, including their family. And to me, from what I've seen, it kind of gets to the point where it turns into about less than happiness and more about a game. It kind of becomes gamified. It kind of becomes like a challenge instead of about life or death, or getting to a certain point for you and your family, or building a better life or anything like that. It becomes more of like a challenge, like this is what I do best. I'm good at it. Let me see if I can get that next number or whatever. I'm saying, let me see if I can get that next billion. Let me just see if I can do it. If I don't, whatever. But it becomes a lot easier the more money that you have to accumulate more money. So it's just like it becomes gamified. And a lot of these people that have a lot of wealth, some of them built it on their own. And there's also that fear of going back to the way things were and having less and having nothing. Um, my parents have that fear, and it can cause hoarding, and you don't need something, but you get it anyway, quote unquote, just in case, right? Because you never know. So you want to store 5 times, 10 times as much, or if you come across a deal, you snap up that deal, even though you have no need for it whatsoever. You get the deal anyway. You buy what's on sale anyway, because, you just never know. Anything can happen, whatever. So you have all of that psychology going on. So, I just wanted to kind of break some of this stuff down a little bit. And, like I said, they don't have any incentive to stop, but they have psychological incentives to keep going. Once it's gamified, once you have that mindset of just in case, once you have that mindset of accumulation, once you're used to doing it, once you're good at doing something, you're just going to keep going. The only way, I believe, to kind of stop this or slow it down or whatever is really through taxation, which, they ain't gonna like that. Nobody likes taxes, right? And it's partly because of the messaging that we have and the culture that we have. And I'm only speaking from like an American centric thought process here. I know this is a worldwide issue, but from an American perspective, taxes are always bad, right? And we have no messaging about the good that taxes do or why you even pay taxes. It's always taxes rob me to pay welfare for people who don't want to work or whatever, all of that kind of narrative. And I'm not trying to make it political or anything, but that's what we see. So all those problems, I'm not equipped to solve all of that kind of stuff. What I am equipped to do is kind of take a look at the numbers and find out, okay, what can we individually do about it? Right. So one thing I do find is that we can do something about it, because the one thing about these wealthy people, the wealthier you get, the more percent of your wealth is put into financial assets, and away from real estate. Now, real estate has a super high barrier to entry for the most part. It takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of credit. It takes a lot of stuff to get started with real estate. But real estate, really, unless you're talking about commercial real estate, is really a middle class thing for the most part, right? Because most of the middle class's wealth is tied up into home equity when you're talking about a net wealth standpoint. But as you get up in the wealth ladders, and I'll show this to you in just a second, or I can show it to you right now, not here, but as you get higher in the wealth rungs, a larger and larger percent of your money is tied up in things like private business. And then especially beyond private business, it starts to get into the stock market. Corporations are involved. So the thing about the stock market, it's public. And that's the only place that anybody else can access high net worth money. That's the only place where it's kind of up for grabs, so to speak, in a way. So that's the only place that you can go get it. That's where all the money is. So, I'm trying to organize my thoughts here, but first I want to take a look at this table that I found, this article about the World Inequality Report and the uneven increases in wealth since the 1990s. So you can see broken down from, the different classes, the top 1%, which the threshold to get in there is not even $1 million, believe it or not. the wealth has increased by 3.2% on average over all of that time. What is that, 30 years? Something like that. 30 years, an average growth rate of 3.2% in wealth. Okay. So that's not that much, honestly. And it's honestly average for all populate or all the total average is 3.2%, I should say. The middle class has actually been growing more than the top 1% over that time. Now, this is since 1995. Now, this is accelerated lately, especially with the pandemic and everything like that. This is accelerated, but over this time on average, 3.2% growth. Now, once you get up into the higher and higher echelons, where it's easier and easier to make money, you start getting, a lot higher, up till 9.3% for the really super rich, right? Now, even this is higher than the stock market returns on average. I think the returns for the stock market, or at least the S&P, is like 8%. But even this is annual growth rate, right? So keep these numbers in mind. So you got like 4%, 5, 6, 9, 8, all this kind of stuff percent per year that these people are growing at on average, right? So keep those numbers in mind, because that's good to know as far as how fast that they are growing. Okay, how fast we're growing, how fast everybody's growing, right? Another thing that I like to look at is annual wealth, or not annual, but wealth or net worth by race, right? Or ethnicity, whatever you want to call it. So the average is about 71,000. Asians, and I don't know if this includes like Indians or not, but it should. But Asians overall have the highest income. So this is income and not net worth, sorry. They have the highest, and of course, Black people have the lowest, because Black people get shafted everywhere. But this in a world of billionaires is kind of sad. It gets really bad once you look at the net worth numbers. But it's not really moving. The only people that are really, really on the move are the Asian segment. Speaking by the numbers, everybody else is kind of in lockstep with each other. Nobody's really growing faster than anybody else, except for when we get to the Asian segment. So another interesting thing I saw was the education segment, because that really makes a huge difference, man. My goodness, a bachelor's degree, like 2x's your income expectancy. It's crazy. But this I found super interesting right here, about especially the generational divide, because one of my thoughts is baby boomers as a whole have really locked up the money, and they've really kind of sucked up everything. Even Gen Xers aren't really doing as well as they should. Like, you got to think millennials are like 40 years old at this point, but this is like 2019. So I think they're like 25 to 38 or something like that during this time. But even, at 38, the average 38-year-old having a wealth of $27,000, and if you exclude the home, having a wealth of $13,000, net worth of $13,000 excluding home equity, is like at almost 40 years old. That's bad. But the average baby boomer has like 90K sitting around. That they're fine, right? So you've got all this wealth locked up in this generation. They're holding on to it while you got their kids, sitting here starving. It's just kind of crazy, right? So I thought that was kind of weird and something to look at as well. And then, of course, when we break things down by race, 40% $14,000. Now, this is including home equity. So a lot of Black people have almost all of their wealth, even to where their net worth goes negative. All of their wealth is locked up in real estate, personal real estate, right? While you have this is, bam, it's a huge difference, right? So overall, it's just like, okay, what do we do about this? How can we fight back against this? So if we go back to my profit targets, right? What I'm trying to achieve, these numbers just happen to kind of work out. And I'll show you what I mean. So my profit target, my daily profit target is 4%. My weekly 15, annual is 400%, monthly 50, all that good stuff, right? So that leads us to get about a win rate. We're able to achieve a win rate of 95% on average with these numbers, right? With only going after $20 per contract, as far as profit, right? So remember that the top whatever 1% is growing at like 9-10% per year, and we're trying to grow at 400% per year. But we're not trying to do this forever. Like, my personal target is $4 million in liquid net worth, because a 5% return, which I can just throw it into some dividends, yields about $200,000 in income of no touch money for me, right? And I'll be fine with that. I might go further once I get here, I don't know, but right now this is my target personally. So to be able to get here normally, it takes a lifetime, like a straight legit 100 years or whatever, a lifetime, to get to $4 million. Like it was like there was something else where if, like, you put away $500 a month starting at age like 20, and then compound that at 8%, you'll get to $1 million by the time like you're 60 years old or something like that. I mean, that's great and all, but nah, we have billionaires that didn't start as billionaires out there. So there's got to be a way to cross these thresholds. There's got to be a way to cross these thresholds. And this is, I believe, one way. It is what it is. So this, I was thinking about, like, okay, Warren Buffett's one of those people who's self-made, whatever, started from nothing, and now he's like a super ultra billionaire type person. So like, how much do you need to make to do that, right? How do you actually, what does crossing those economic thresholds actually look like? What do you need to earn to do that? Do you need to earn $1 million a month, like starting when you're like in the womb? What does that look like? So I put it into my handy compounding calculator. And I use this calculator because it does monthly compounding instead of annual compounding. It's like the only one I could find that does that. And that works for our style of trading because we're compounding monthly, or even more than that. But monthly is good enough. So if you start with $500, and all of this, I want to couch all of this in some big ifs, right? They can be real world numbers, because we do have billionaires who started from like $0, but the likelihood of doing this for year upon year upon year upon year, super tough. I don't know what the actual number is, but not a lot of people do it. So it's got to be very small. But mathematically speaking, starting with $500, if you compound that over 420 months, which I looked, it took Warren Buffett about 36 years to make his first billion, from the age of, I think, 20. So I think he got his first billion at age 56. And the thing I saw started him at 20 years old or something like that. I don't know. But anyway, over 35 years, which is 420 months, starting with a balance of $500, if you can get a return of exactly 3.515% per month, and then compound that over 35 years, then you get to $1 billion. That's what Warren Buffett actually did. So it's possible, but so is winning the lottery. So, I mean, take that for what it's worth. but I don't even want to get to $1 billion. I don't need $1 billion, right? I don't want I don't want to spend 35 years doing this, basically, so I'm getting off the train early. I'm doing enough to where I can live what I consider a comfortable life is what my goal is, right? So I can take my foot off the gas. But just to show you the power of this strategy and why I'm doing this and why I am putting this out there as a possible way, what I believe is a viable way to fight back against this stuff right here. That's why, this stuff right here leads to this stuff right here, which leads to moving you from here up into here somewhere, right? That's the goal. And you have to grow at a super fast pace in order to keep up, because they're still making money. Inflation is still raging, right? And it's not going to stop because our economy is based on inflation. The target inflation is 2% a year. So inflation is expected and actually relied upon in the type of economy that we have. So each year it is built into the fabric of the system that every dollar that you have loses value. Okay. Like I used to talk to my dad about the $1 million gallon of milk. It's going to happen someday, right? I don't know how long in the future it's going to take, but we're going to have $1 million gallon of milk one day. Anyway, this is why I advocate, because you have to grow at such a rapid pace. And it's like, how do you do that? This is the only way that I found that I believe is viable for a lot of people, that has a risk level low enough that you can rely on it somewhat, as long as you're careful. And yeah, you're going to lose money sometimes. You're going to blow some things up sometimes, but that's why we have risk management. And it works because the growth level is so fast. Even if you do get into trouble, you can come back relatively quickly. Like, I don't think that people appreciate sometimes how fast this growth rate is. Even at 1%, it's ridiculous. Even at 1% compounded, it's ridiculous. Like, as long as your income with this strategy is positive, anything compounded over time, I don't care. I think the lowest that you can make is like 5 cents minus commission or something like that. Even if you can make $1 on this strategy and compound it, I mean, it's going to suck for the first, couple of years. Like, look at this. This is how compounding works. Like, it's nothing. It's not even, it doesn't even register on a graph to, like, I think year 18, I can see some peach. It doesn't even register. And like, this number is like, I think $1 million more, in the millions on the line 18 here. I can't zoom in, but this is a couple $1 million. Like, this right here, year 21, which I can't even click on 18, but 21. I mean, that is what, $3 million after 21 years, and it's barely registering, okay, on this graph. So, like, the first segment, like the first half of a compounding strategy sucks, right? It does. But even if you drop this to the lowest possible point, got your win rate up to like 99%, and just made like as little as you possibly could on this strategy, as long as you compound it, it's going to turn into something someday. Because this growth rate is just so fast. Like, these numbers, like 15% per week, people would, these are like crazier than Bernie Madoff numbers, right? Like Bernie Madoff was promising his people, like, I think, I don't know, 15 or 20% returns annually, regardless. Like, even when the market was down, he was promising like 15% returns, like, just annually. These make Bernie Madoff look like he's an amateur, right? So I think we have to keep in mind just how strong this stuff is. And these are power tools, right? This option strategy is like a jackhammer. It can blow you up in a second if you don't know what you're doing. If you do know what you're doing and you slip, you can get blown up. It doesn't matter how much you have, everything that you put into it can get blown up in a second. So it's playing with nitroglycerin, right? It's playing with nitro. So this is like the nuclear option, right? So I don't want to do this forever, but it is potent and it is powerful. And absent me actually showing you the trades and everything like that, just hearing these numbers sounds ridiculous, right? It sounds stupid. It sounds like a scam, right? But it's not. It's real, and it's the best path. Even if you compare it to real estate, I think, is the only thing that can even come close to this because of the leverage. Because you can get a bank to fund like 90% of a purchase, and you could take advantage of all of that leverage. I think real estate's the only thing that can come close to these returns, right? But these returns actually beat real estate. They actually beat Bitcoin when it was on the rise. I did that math before, and when Bitcoin was rising, these numbers actually beat the Bitcoin rise. And it always baffles me that some more experienced option traders look at this and laugh, like, oh, only 4%. I can get 10 to 1 or 20 to 1 on my money or whatever. It always baffles me, but to each his own. Everybody's different. Different things drive different folks, but it personally baffles me that 4% per day ain't enough. But